Hello everyone, happy Friday and welcome to the Valley News Now Network. Duke Schindler here joining you on this Friday afternoon as things start to get a little cooler here. We're in for a pretty cold weekend if you heard any of our meteorologists. But we're here for another episode of Sports Overtime. Glad we're getting right back on this train because we have a jam-packed Friday for you. A lot to get to, a lot to talk about. We're going to start on the frozen pond here for state hockey and the semifinals that are coming up. Had the quarterfinals just yesterday and got 4 teams remaining here, and we want to just highlight some of the games here, what happened, because we had quite the surprise at the top of the bracket. The first game of the day yesterday was between number one seed Minot United taking on West Fargo Cheyenne. Now, the Mustangs started down 1 early in this one, but the script absolutely flipped. In 2 minutes, Bennett Benson tying things up off a power play goal, then Oliver Lasovsky. Just a mere 121 seconds later, on a breakaway, he was able to bury a goal to tie things up. Actually, that would take the lead, I should say. Then Minot United would tie things up, and this game would end up going to overtime. Now, that's where our hero enters stage left. Wyatt Matson patiently waited for his opportunity all game and sent Minot United home in overtime. A true thriller. And that's just something you really dream of doing while you're in your backyard as a kid. Being able to do that on one of the biggest stages, I mean, that's just got to be nothing but a euphoric feeling for some of these kids as well. But moving on to the next game, that'll be Grand Forks Red River. They took on Jamestown, and a shot to get to that title game. That'll be the 2 seed versus the 3 seed, and it is Grand Forks Red River coming out with a 5-1 win. But not only that, the junior, Caden Ulmer, took this one by the reins, and he really did not give it back. A hat trick coming in these quarterfinals. That leads Red River past the Blue Jays. And now our semifinal, first one of the day. That's going to be happening tonight. Red River versus Cheyenne with the puck drop at 5:30 p.m. tonight. Now moving over to the bottom half of the bracket, just a half hour after that first semifinal game is the matchup between Grand Forks Central and Bismarck Legacy. Well, I can tell you right now that Legacy, they were able to take down Shanley in a 4-1 match. And then Grand Forks Central, they put on a clinic. The whole team just pouring it on Century, and they moved on to the semifinals 10-1. Whew. So let's keep moving on and give you a look at the slate for tonight. These are your matchups we've been talking about. Number 4, Cheyenne. They're going to be taking on Grand Forks Red River. After Cheyenne defeating the number 1 seed, Minot United. They only had 4 losses on the season. And it's Bismarck Legacy, the number 2 seed, versus number 1, Grand Forks Central. That puck drop will be 30 minutes after the first semifinal game. That's going to be at Shields Arena. Moving over to the girls' side of things, these are your state semifinal matchups. To no one's surprise, the 1 and 2 seeds who are also undefeated on the season, well, Fargo North, South, and Grand Forks Central / Red River, they pitched shutouts in their quarterfinal games to move on to the semis. Now, facing Fargo North South right now is West Fargo. That game is currently in progress here. Last time I checked, it was actually a 2-2 game heading into the third, and Fargo North South, like I said, they haven't lost a game this year, so we could be seeing history in the making if West Fargo can get the job done. To move on to the finals, then the Night Riders of Grand Forks Central and Red River, they'll be taking on 6-seeded Fargo Davies, who also had a thriller last night, by the way. Another overtime game, they'd move on to the finals after it was Hudson Hofer who played hero to net the game-winning goal. So Davies and the Night Riders will, like the boys' side of things, they'll play 30 minutes after North-South and West Fargo comes to a close. And we'll start bringing things back here because we got a lot more to talk about. And we're talking football here. Why? I think everyone knows why. Moving over to the Mountain West are the NDSU Bison back, or they're here in the FBS, I should say. No doubt it's been an exciting time here to be a Bison fan and make this jump that so many were even clamoring for years. I mean, even when I was in high school. Now, even when I was in high school, was hearing those same conversations of when are the Bison moving to the FBS. Now they joined the Mountain West Conference with their conference opponents set for 2026, and a new era of Bison football competing with the top of the top. Maybe not conference-wise, of course, but here are your opponents, conference opponents and Mountain West opponents for 2026. And I can tell you right now, if you're a traveling Bison fan, you are in for a treat. They'll be hitting the road to Colorado to take on Air Force Academy. That's going to be a fun one, getting out there to the mountains, then flying to the islands of Hawaii. Not a bad team last year, by the way. They definitely had a nice little season and should make for a very fun matchup against those Rainbow Warriors. And they're one of my all-time favorite teams. If anyone remembers the name Colt Brennan, watched almost every game and stayed up late for all those games to see him sling the rock. After Hawaii, they'll be heading to Albuquerque to take on the Lobos of New Mexico, who went 9-4 on the season last year, and it should be a fun challenge for the Bison, as the Lobos were undefeated at home last season. So let's see if NDSU can come out with the dub. Then the last away game here, and I'm sure plenty of fans will be flying to this one. It's going to be in Las Vegas as the Bison take on the Mountain West runner-ups last year, Rebels. Now the Mountain West Conference champions, the Boise State Broncos, they actually made the move to the Pac-12, so NDSU probably won't or will not be seeing them in any conference matchups as they move to the Pac-12. But I can tell you right now, for those heading to Las Vegas, hopefully the headaches aren't too rough come Saturday and y'all make it to the game. Now we'll move on to the home games, and I don't know who put this schedule together, but they did a great job of the away games, because coming to town and hitting the Fargo Dome, that's going to be the Nevada Wolfpack, Northern Illinois Huskies, UTEP, then the Wyoming Cowboys. So we have a great kickoff here for a new era of Bison football. Now moving on, but sticking to the Bison, we'll head over to women's basketball. They had a 23-game win streak, one of the most unprecedented I've ever seen. That came to an end for South Dakota State, who's also having a great season themselves and improving to 23-6. Let's bring up the highlights and show you how this went down. Like I mentioned, the Bison on a 23-game win streak, and Brooklyn Meyer was flexing early. She went to the rack untouched for a quick 6-point run. She also had 28 and went 7 of 8 from the field. But we know this squad, they'll make a run. There's Carrington Ass with a massive factor coming off the bench and bringing the Bison within 1, but South Dakota State only 2 of 10 from 3. There's Madison from the corner with the teardrop. Now this is starting to slip here, but Carrington doing Carrington things. Bison trying to close this lead there, but can't. Heading to the fourth, down 13. Then it's Josie Schiller splashing the first from beyond the arc. Ooh! But too little too late for the Bison. They're dropping their first game. Listen to this. They've dropped their first game since November 16th. One more game for NDSU before they close the season. They're going to host UND this Saturday at 1 p.m., That's going to be before the Summit League tournament starting on March 4th. But cannot say enough about this squad. Very solid last year, I'll tell you that much. Going 21-12 overall, then making it to the Great 8 of the women's NIT tournament. Only to lose to Troy in overtime, who actually finished up runner-up in the women's NIT. But that is not the only basketball team here in Fargo that's putting on a show. How about the men's basketball team? They've clinched the outright champion of the Summit League in the regular season title. Only one more game left on their slate, but last night having a great test leading up to that tournament. A 1-versus-2 matchup atop the Summit League against St. Thomas. I always forget that they've really made their way into the scene. Oops, excuse me there. Now the Bison, typically, I should say, a very balanced offense. 4 players averaging double figures, and 2 of them averaging 9, so almost 6 players in double figures. But the Tommies certainly put on the clamps on defense. They poured it on the Bison when the ball was in their when the ball was in their hands, but it just wasn't the Bison's night either. They did win the turnover battle, but couldn't find the bottom of the bucket. 36% from the field and 24% from three. Compared to the Tommies, 56% from the field as well as 40% from three. It just takes a ton to overcome that, and the Bison just could not get the job done. They fall 84-62 over the Tommies there, and then North Dakota State, of course, they'll be hosting North Dakota in the regular season finale. That's going to be tomorrow at 4. Now we'll head up north to Grand Forks as the UND hockey squad, they are heading to a close on the season as number 3 UND hockey. They only got 2 games left on their schedule and still atop the NCHC standings, but another great test as they close out the season. They got number 4 Western Michigan to set up for a great Frozen face-off tournament. Now the first matchup two things I'm really looking at here is both these teams have absolutely fantastic offensive attacks. Both UND and Western Michigan, they sit at 4th and 7th in just goals per game, but also on the power play I'd like to look at too. Both teams play pretty clean games overall, but Western Michigan, they've been awesome on the penalty kill, 86% on that. That's good for 7th in the NCAA, while the UND, they boast one of their best power plays, 28% on the season, which is good for 7th in the nation as well. Now, second, I'm looking at the goalie matchup in this one as well. A battle of the underclassmen between Jan Spoonar sporting a save percentage of 91.9%. And yes, we are using decimal points for this because the sophomore for the Mustangs, Hampton Slakinski, he's at 91.6%. So we should be seeing some fireworks this weekend leading up to the Frozen Face-Off starting March 6th, and that goes till March 8th. And of course, that is going to be at the Ralph. We'll take you back here as we're about to wrap up sports overtime here. But we want to talk some Wolves because, well, it was a late one last night in LA, and not many people probably stayed up for it. But if you did, you were treated to quite the ending. So let's bring up this video and take a look at what we're seeing here. Now, Kawhi Leonard and John Collins for the Los Angeles Clippers, they were actually listed out last night. So you know what that means. It's going to be a tough game for the Wolves, but not for Anthony Edwards, heading straight to the rack there, slamming it down. We've seen that from Ant plenty of times this year, but this game really stayed close all throughout. Over to Ant, the pump fake to the rack. We love when Edwards gets to the rack like that. Instead of maybe settling for a contested jumper, you see it right there again. Probably should have been an and one, but Anthony Edwards, he's fighting through that contact no matter what. You know he ain't throwing his head back and flopping or anything like that. Dante over to Bones. Now, if you take a look here, we'll pause the video. 68-70, Clippers lead here. 11 minutes in the fourth, and this was also a very, very scrappy game on top of that. But Bones Highland taking the three, making the three, then a steal by Jaden McDaniels. Over to Naz Reid, a classic and vintage Naz Reid move. You love to see it from the big man there. 87-84 with 1:40 left. This one was certainly, I would say, as close as it gets for the Wolves because they just kind of played down to their opponents. So 1:40 left, and Benedict Mathurin takes it straight to the rack. He's been having an absolutely awesome season after getting traded from the Pacers to the Clippers and just pouring it on all these teams. 14 points, but the Wolves did a great job of holding him. 4 of 14 from the field and 0 of 4 from 3. 1:36 left as we keep this thing moving, and this is the dagger that I want everyone to see. Pausing it here just for this. 89-88. Anthony Edwards has been not only one of the best catch-and-shoot three-point shooters and just three-point shooters in general this year, he's also one of the top clutch players in this league and maybe the best that we've seen so far as the season has rolled on. Now you see it right there. Chris Dunn facing him, going straight up, but they're going to bring the help. Edwards kind of getting himself into a little pickle here, but that does not matter. Derek Jones Jr. getting up in his face, putting a hand up. Chris Dunn right there next to him. Guess what? Anthony Edwards is going to pull that three and absolutely drill it. That puts the Wolves up 4 and the dagger. Let's check this out one more time, because why not, right? Gets the foot behind the line. Cold-blooded. That is Anthony Edwards at his finest. Letting the world know that he is one of the best players in the NBA. And if you ask me, no bias aside, right? He should be in that MVP conversation. What a great performance from Anthony Edwards. He had, let me check, 31 on the day. Dante finally bouncing back a little bit, had a great day offensively. We've seen him do it on defense. We've seen the hustle plays from Dante. If you could just bring that three-point percentage up a little more, get to the rack, get an and one here and there, that plays big into this team. Julius Randle struggling, 1 of 10 from the field, only 4 points. Jaden McDaniels had a great start to this game, going 3 of 3 to start, but ending up with 12 points in the end of this one. 7 rebounds, 3 steals for Mr. McDaniels. Then Rudy, not many points as we know from the big Frenchman, but 13 boards. You're going to need that against slower, smaller teams like the Clippers and injury-riddled teams when it all comes down to it. Thank you guys very much for joining us here on Sports Overtime. Glad to have this back on the slate here on the Valley News Now Network. Hope you guys enjoyed. For Duke Schindler, we'll catch you later.